Hey, I'm back out on the back road again, and I have found an interesting place. Actually, I've rediscovered this place. I've been here many times before, but I'd like to share it with you. A lot of times people ask me from the things I post on social media, hey, what is that? Where is it? Give me some more information. So, sometimes the video speaks a little more than just a photograph. So let me show you where I'm at. I am at a place called Long Run Cemetery, which is in Eastern Jefferson County near Shelby County, Kentucky. It's right on the county line. And this is an interesting place. It was associated with Abraham Lincoln in that this was the property deeded to his grandfather, who was a Revolutionary War soldier. He owned 400 acres of land that this church and cemetery that I'm about to show you was situated on. And he was killed here while he was developing the land. He was actually planting corn and was killed by a band of Shawnee Indians in the late 1700s. And I'll get to that in just a little bit here, but I'm gonna go ahead and switch the camera around in a second here, and I'll show you a little bit of this cemetery and what's left of this area, this church, and tell you a little bit of the history behind it. So this is Long Run Cemetery and burial ground, and this is what's left of the Long Run Baptist Church. The Long Run Baptist Church is considered to be one of the oldest Baptist churches in this part of this little region of Kentucky, Jefferson County area. It was formed in the 1700s, and it was started here on this site. And when I told you before that Abraham Lincoln's grandfather was associated with this, he farmed this area, and he was killed somewhere here. This tree line that you see back over here there's a creek back there called Long Run Creek, and it goes out in front of this property here. And this all sits on 1 acre, but of the 400. But this site was a church. The ruins you see here were a church which burned Christmas Eve 1960. And if you look, you can find this information readily, but on the church's website and in oral histories and written histories of that time, the cabin that Captain Abraham Lincoln, that would be our president's grandfather, built on this site and lived in, was in the front part of this church. So these would have been where the front doors of the church were, these two openings here. And his cabin sat in the first part of the church. So walking through here, his cabin was somewhere right in this area here. No one knows exactly where, but it was somewhere right in here. And when he was out in the fields planting some corn with his three of his 5 sons, they were ambushed by a group of Shawnee Indians. And that happened on May 19th, 1786. And he was killed. And his sons ran to a nearby, they called them stations. It was a fortified area that settlers at that time lived in to keep themselves safe and live in numbers, and had stockade walls to keep them safe. And his son ran there to get some help. And actually, according to the records, he shot one of the attacking Shawnee and killed him, and the rest fled. Now, oral tradition is all we have, but they say he was buried on this property. No one knows exactly where. There is, however, a memorial for him right here. I don't know when this was placed. It was placed by the Sons of the American Revolution, but I don't know exactly when this was here. I've been coming out here since the 1980s, and this has always been here since I've been coming. So it's been here for a while. But he was buried somewhere on this property. Now, after he was killed, his wife took the remaining 5 children, and she moved further south into Kentucky for a few years before moving on into, well, that's where she lived. But before Abraham Lincoln moved on, his brothers moved on. They lived a little further south of Jefferson County in Kentucky. But then on this site, the cabin sat empty. And the locals started meeting in the abandoned cabin to have church services and just community services. And eventually the church started meeting there regularly, and this property was finally sold to the Lincoln family, and it went through 2 different owners, and finally it was deeded to the the regular Long Run Baptist Church is who they deeded it to. Now, all this took place in Virginia. You have to remember, Kentucky used to be part of Virginia. So this was all in Virginia at the time. We were considered Virginia. But this property was deeded to the regular Long Run Baptist Church. And then it stayed in their hands until 1961. It burned in 1960, Christmas Eve. And the church at that time went ahead and deeded this property to the Jefferson County government, Jefferson County, Kentucky government. And they have been maintaining the property ever since. And they do a pretty good job of it. They keep the grass cut. There has been a lot of vandalism at this cemetery. This area over here used to be full of headstones, and a lot of them are gone. Some have been stolen. Some have been just vandalized and knocked over and placed in piles around here. But you can tell it's fairly well kept for a really old cemetery. The most recent burials here really are probably the 1960s. I think there are a couple back here the direction I'm headed that might be a little newer than that, but I think the 60s was about it, 1960s. And that kind of closed it out for this cemetery. The records are a bit spotty as to what sites are open. It appears that it's full, though. And, you know, that's the story of this cemetery. It's a pretty interesting little tidbit of information. This used to be out in the country, and might be a little hard to see, but up on top of this ridge over here is a subdivision. Houses everywhere around here. So it used to be a very rural place until the early 2000s. It is now slowly becoming surrounded by thousands of homes. And a lot of people drive by here every day and don't have any idea that this was associated with the family of one of our presidents. Actually, too, Harry Truman, his aunts and uncles were members of this congregation. They're buried right over here. The Trumans, I don't know if it's paternal or maternal side, but yeah. So, a little bit of family relation there with President Truman. So there's another one of my little adventures, this time on video. If you would like, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below, and you'll get hit that little bell. You'll get a notification every time I upload one of these. Take care and have a great day.